Hey, everybody. Welcome to the TEConnect podcast. I'm John Martin.
And I'm Dean Reverman.
All right, Dean, this is part two.
Part two.
Of our epic trilogy. You told me I needed to make it sound
I don't know why, but it has to be epic.
Trilogy.
Yes, trilogy.
It's a trilogy of episodes that are heavily focused on topics around AI in particular.
Yes.
Now, intelligence and retail may not go together for some folks. I mean, if you're, it depends on your perspective.
Yeah, okay.
If you're a frustrated customer, you may think that nobody intelligent
There's no intelligence here at all. That's right, yeah.
You could also be a frustrated employee who thinks that no one intelligent ever shops there.
Yes.
Or maybe that none of your coworkers are intelligent.
Yes.
I've been on every side of this at some point where I question the intelligence in retail.
But that's not what we're talking about today.
But our topic is about retail in particular and how AI fits into that. We've got Tony Boncore from Honeywell rejoining us once again to talk about all things AI and retail. We're going to get into basically kind of like where retail already had AI involved because kind of like we talked about in our last episode with Rafi, like it's not like AI is brand new.
Right.
It's just we're talking about it in a different way and we're seeing new use cases for it that we
now everybody's like
before.
Hypersensitive to the AI that's around them. Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
We're going to talk about the discussion that is happening, how it's driving conversations about retailers, what they're expected to do with it, or what we're hoping to accomplish there with them. We're going to talk about checkout inventory management in particular as two areas where AI can be an important part of it. And maybe a little bit about what Tony's watching out for on the AI.
What he got on his radar and all that kind of what he's seeing. I like it. I like it a lot. Yeah.
All that plus our usual value to the VAR. What's TEConnect with us? It's time to plug in and get connected.
Welcome to the TEConnect podcast. It's time to get connected.
All right, as I mentioned, we got Tony back with us today. It's been maybe, a year and a half or so since your last episode with us. I think we talked about some retail trends then.
Yep.
Yeah, it's been, I think, about 1 year almost to the date. And we talked about consumer behavior's impact on retail trends. Good memory, guys.
That's right. That was the behavior stuff.
Yes, sir.
Well, he is the global retail marketing principal for Honeywell, and we're glad to have you back. You're a proven expert on this topic. So tell us maybe a little bit what you've been up to. You were just telling us before we got on that you've been literally traveling the world right now. So what's been going on in your world since we last talked?
Yeah, quite a bit, actually. So Honeywell, obviously a global, brand all over the world, and we support retailers, across that entire footprint. So I have the fortunate event to go and meet with retailers all over the place, and it's been pretty tremendous getting to see what I've experienced over the last year. So I've been busy these last couple of months, especially. Hopefully, as you all know, when fourth quarter rolls around for retail, things settle down a little bit. So it's been great.
Well, and I love too, because that gives you that great perspective, because we know that from talking to a lot of other folks, I think you mentioned on the last pod too, that a lot of retail trends, especially around technology, tend to start outside of the U.S. before it gets here, or at least maybe gets adopted a little more quickly and
certainly
heavily.
On the payment side and stuff like that, right? Yeah.
So, I think that's awesome that you have that experience where you've been able to go see like, hey, here's what's happening, elsewhere that's probably going to impact our market here in the U.S. as well at some point in the future. So, all right, well, then let's talk about this topic about AI and how it impacts retail. As I mentioned it, obviously it's everywhere. Everyone's talking about it right now. And a lot of that conversation has been built around the generative AI stuff, but you're starting to see anybody that can come up with an idea about AI and figure out
Wild West.
Cram it into their solutions are like, let's talk AI. But it's not a brand new concept, as I mentioned. It's definitely not something we're just now getting around to doing. So how has artificial intelligence already been part of retail in the past leading up to where we are now?
Yeah, so this is a good question. And artificial intelligence, like you said, has been around for a long time. And the way I like to look at it is it's almost like a metamorphosis. So if you really think back to the last 10 years where we originally started talking about business intelligence and BI tools and things that become predictive and help, retailers and businesses kind of assess where they're at from a data perspective. It's kind of materialized over the course of time from something of that nature, from a data set, to being a lot more intuitive and intelligent, for lack of a better term, when we talk about artificial intelligence, to be really focused on what can generate great results from a customer service perspective. Obviously there's elements of automation that are built into this as well. So specifically, you can probably talk more about the AMR if you look at retail from a supply chain perspective, where they're the autonomous robots that are working within distribution. They've been around for some time. And those are all built on artificial intelligence-based platforms to know where they're going, to know what they're doing, and things of that nature. So anytime that you can replace an associate, a team member, an employee with some form of automation, there's got to be, in my opinion, some form of artificial intelligence built in to ensure that service level remains the same, and the experience for the customer or shopper, if you will, remains the same. So you can think through this, even when you call and you get the voice automation and it's listening to you and it's prompting you, press 1 for this option, or ask me the question. I can understand what you're saying. That's all artificial intelligence. So many companies have already been experiencing this. I think the one thing I would say you mentioned this, the generative AI, that's gotten a lot of media. So that's really, I think, escalating the awareness of what AI really is. There's different versions of artificial intelligence. And the more you hear about ChatGPT and some of these other, artificial intelligence from a generative perspective, the more you realize the impact it's having on the retail segment. And that we can talk more in depth about, where this is going. So it's been around for some time, as you mentioned, and there's quite a few different avenues that you can look at it, from the robotics to the, voice automated systems to computer vision, if, being from an inventory management standpoint, loss prevention standpoint. And then you're starting to see this kind of, materialize and morph into, movement into self-checkout and checkout as well.
Yeah, it's fascinating when you think about retail. I mean, it's been around for thousands of years, right? Retail's nothing new.
Since we were trading pelts,
right? Yeah, exactly. And of course, we've had computers for decades now. Right. So there's been some quantification that's been going on behind the scenes around the retail space and trying to crunch the numbers, and where Tony was at, the whole big data. Okay, now we've got all this data. What do we start doing with it? But it is fascinating to see AI and the learning and the training of models that is kind of coming through with the LLMs and the generative AI and stuff like that. I think it's just opening up people's realities a little bit more. Oh, yeah. Where now it's not just so much stuck in what I'll call the server room and the people that are in the server room crunching numbers.
Just what the nerds are up to.
Exactly. Spitting out some reports. You've got everybody kind of interested, all the way down to like the associates on the store level around, okay, I've had this mobile device for 3, 4, 2 years, whatever. What intelligence is behind this thing now? And the demand that I think is going to start coming out of that, right? Yeah. And that AI is going to have to start answering a little bit for. Yeah. So we'll see. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think about like online shopping. We've been doing that for a long enough time now. Yep. Most of that has some sort of AI built into it, where you return to a website the second you log in, or even if you don't log in, it knows who you are. It's tracking your IP. It knows this stuff about you already. Or you go to a grocery store, you buy a jug of milk, but a coupon spits out for you of some other one of your favorite products that you haven't purchased in a while. Like that stuff's, it's going on behind the scenes. It's already been there. It's nothing brand new. But to your point, I just think we're finally starting to dawn on the idea of like, oh, this thing has been happening, and I think if you're that person who's always like, man, I think everything's listening to me because every time I get the ads on the internet or on my Facebook feed or something like that, or whatever. Like, again, that's just been AI working behind the scenes that's learning and adapting and spitting out what needs to be spit out for you. And now we're talking about it in some more, I think, slightly more tangible ways to utilize it and get it out there. And hopefully some stuff that's going to improve customer experience, and to your point, the employee experience.
Wow,
too.
I was just about to go there on the customer experience. Hey, Tony, real quick, let's sidebar, because you're such the world traveler now, and you've got all this experience. What are you hearing from customers around customer? So what John and I talk about a lot is, hey, we all went through the pandemic, blah, blah, blah. We all lived in caves for a little while, but now we're coming back out. So when we go to retail, we want the experience to be different. So are you hearing from retailers that they are starting to put a little bit of more emphasis, a little bit more premium on the customer experience? Are you hearing a lot of that and technology that can enable that, or what's the take out in the field, if you will?
Yeah, I think that what's really cool, I think one of the things I've observed the most is where every retailer is in their maturity, technology maturity plan, if that makes sense. So we talk at, when we have these conversations, we're talking at the forefront of what technology is and who are some of the leaders in that. There are still some retailers that are, a little bit, I wouldn't say behind isn't the right word, from a maturity perspective, they haven't gotten to that point. But I can assure you, the majority of all the retailers, it's always about how they can meet the shopper's expectations. How do we improve our service levels? How do we ensure that we're able to equip our team members and associates and employees with the right tools to do those things? So it just really varies on where they sit in the maturity aspect of things. And when I get to see across the globe it really does vary. It's not a consistent world, I guess, for lack of a better term. And I think that's pretty amazing, because even some of the largest retailers are a little bit behind what some of the other larger retailers are doing, but they're still successful. So that's what I think is a pretty amazing thing. So some want to learn from others. They'll wait and see, what is so-and-so doing or what is this company doing before we take that step and make that advancement. And some just don't know. So there's an element of what we do, or what I do, is in education. And you'd be surprised how many times I've had conversations, and this goes both ways, by the way, where the retailer is teaching me something. I'm like, oh, no way. And then vice versa, where they're like, we haven't even thought of that. So it's pretty amazing to see where they're at on their maturity journey. But to say that there's one, specific, point where retailers are at, I don't think that's fair. It's a broad spectrum. But it's definitely around, providing service and exceeding service levels for their customer, and productivity and automation. And you see that across the board.
Yeah. It seems to be the chatter, right?
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. Well, so let's talk about what's driving the AI discussions in retail right now. And I wanted to single out some statistics from a Honeywell blog that I found that says 48% of 1,000 retailers said that artificial intelligence, machine learning, computer vision will be top tech impacting retail in the next 3 to 5 years. 59% were planning to deploy in the next year. 38% say they were already using it in some fashion, with 35% saying so at a large scale. And then what I thought was even most interesting, barriers to adoption. 39% said budget. Makes
dollars.
Sense. We all
right.
know that. 29% though said business value, and 21% said a lack of expertise. So let's take all that and condense it here. That was a lot of stats I threw out. So when you're talking to retailers about AI, and this conversation starting to come to the forefront, what are they hoping to get out of it? What are they hoping to accomplish? Are they skeptical of it? Are they uninformed? What are those conversations looking like? Again, you've been all over the world. I'm sure you've been talking about this a lot of folks, and I have a feeling whether you bring it up or not, it's probably coming up. So what do those conversations look like?
Yeah, so I think the first thing I want to say is, if you listen to the statistics you just outlined, it kind of showcases what I was mentioning to you. It's such a broad spectrum. So I think what when it comes to the forefront, it really, again, it's going to vary on the specific retailers, but ultimately what they're looking for, so there's still a labor concern within that market. There's other things that play into this. You've got to look at minimum wage rates, cost to run business, cost to serve the customer, so on and so forth. Some of these AI tools help in terms of reducing the amount of financial impact that it has on that retailer. So really, it really depends on what their model is. So there's very service-based retail where it's one-to-one, CRM, leveraging the experience, experiential shopping. The customer expects them to be known so well. That's a little bit different. That's equipping that particular associate or team member with the knowledge to do that. Then you have more of the self-service retailer, your traditional department stores, general merchandise, where you walk in, and that's where you're going to find more of the productivity. And so what generates productivity from an AI standpoint? Everything from computer vision, from robots doing inventory scanning, from self-checkout, when your traditional self-checkout barcode scanning, moving into a computer vision using a camera to identify product. That's where I think there's some of these changes and overall business needs, if you will, that are cross-functional. And when I say cross-functional, I'm talking if you're a grocery chain in the United States versus a grocery chain in Europe, they're all looking at very similar, technologies to help drive that overarching experience. I do think, though, there are some, retailers that have a perspective on, if we equip or we train our team members, they focus on the team member first, or the employee first, which I think is actually a neat concept as well, too. There's no right or wrong way. It's what works for them. So when I see this, you can see that the investment in that. And here's the thing, too. the retailers that are doing that, where they invest in the team member first versus the shopper first, have a higher retention. They're retaining those team members longer because they're investing in them. So that's the other piece that plays into this as well too, where technology can help support the team members and associates for being successful without replacing them. And I think that's a concern when you talk about AI. Is just going to take my job? Is AI going to replace me? So I think it's got to be balanced. And when I see that across the globe, is that's where the retailers are trying to figure out what makes sense. One last part of this is there are plenty of companies that don't even know about what we're talking about right now. They have ideas. They've heard it from they only think of AI as in that whole ChatGPT, but they're not thinking about it in terms of what we're discussing in automation and doing things within a process that, makes the experience seamless. That right there to me is where your statistics in the beginning, talk about, this, these business models and the differentiation between the retailers that know and the ones that do not. So it's a pretty interesting place to be right now.
I love the reinforcement that actually enabling your associates with technology is a good thing.
Yeah.
Because we preach about that from high upon the hill,
right?
All the time. And so, it's good to have that little bit of reinforcement.
We run down the hill and shout about it. We run back up the hill and shout about it. We're
100%.
Shouting about
Yeah. But when you think about the barriers, kind of going back to some of the stats that you threw out there, 21% lack of expertise. And I guess, to Tony's point, there's a lot of people that don't even understand what we're talking about right now. We might as well talk about launching rockets or something like that. They don't understand it, but the fear is, they're not going to be around for a little while. Now, I don't want to pick on anybody like I don't know, some dollar retailer out there, but you walk into those stores, those are about as low tech as you can get.
Yeah.
And maybe the business model there is not going to be accommodating to some of this, at least coming out of the gate. But clearly a lot of people are interested. I got one more statistic. Worldwide demand for artificial intelligence in retail is anticipated to increase at a compound annual growth rate of 30% from 2023 to 2033. So when you have a CAGR that's around 30% for the next decade, that's telling you that obviously there is going to be some demand here to incorporate artificial intelligence and all the many facets that Tony's done a great job of illustrating how it can manifest itself. It's going to happen, right? And it is happening. So it's fascinating.
Yeah. Can I say one thing about what you just said about the dollar stores? Because there's still a place for artificial intelligence in those worlds. It's not necessarily going to be in store per se, where, like you said, you walk in and it's fairly simple retail. I hate to say that, but it really is. It's in the back door, put it on the shelf, out the front door.
Right.
But there is AI plays as it relates to the product, the inventory.
That's a really good point. Absolutely, Tony.
So and that's the piece where, even though we talk about it, we always think in store, but there's other elements of this from a retail standpoint where it can help them in terms of predictives and give them, insights to what the future looks like. I didn't mean to interrupt you guys.
No, that's an excellent point, because that's one of the ways that AI is being used is inventory management, predictive or demand forecasting around, what products should we be bringing in. I guess that would be the most, the clearest, simplest example,
Right.
in dollar store, because I love that. Ship it, bring it in the back, ship it right out the front. That's the whole idea behind them. Right.
Well, just like you, those last 2 percentages of the barriers, the lack of expertise and business value were the two things that stood out to me, because those are the two things that our channel and our VARs and ISVs can accomplish and help them out with.
That's right.
The lack of expertise part, that's easy. Like, okay, you bring me in, I will be the expert that you need to help you get you up and running, help you understand how to utilize this, help you understand what to do to get started, help you explain it to you so you even understand what this does. But that business value piece, like that conversation you guys just had, where you in the guise of a dollar store might be thinking, this has nothing to do
here.
with us.
There's no.
We bring stuff in, we ship it out, we sell it. It's done. That's it.
Right.
But if you're able to go in and help folks explain that business value, help them understand, like, look, you may not think we again, this was part of this conversation we had with Rafi, and a couple of the conversations we've had lately about technology in retail is that a lot of the SMB retailers might think, this isn't for me. This is the big box stores. This is the biggest stores in the world. that can afford and will do this and have a need for this because they're giant multinational, corporations or whatever. But in reality, there is a place for all of this technology, even down to the smallest local store. There's a potential place that it would fit in. And that was a perfect exchange right there, where if you are working with dollar stores for some reason, and typically all you're selling is just simple point of sale or something, and maybe some basic inventory management software or something like that. Imagine going in there and having that conversation where they're kind of like, nah, I don't see any point to this. We just bring the stuff in and sell the stuff out. Put it on the shelf and go. And you tell them just what Tony said, like, hey, there is a place. Guess what? We can improve your inventory management. We can improve your stocking. We can improve your track and trace. We can all this kind of stuff with a little bit of extra enablement. Those, I think, that's the heart of what a value add reseller does, is be able to explain a business value proposition to somebody that doesn't see it. So if you have those customers that are part of that, whatever percentage it was that said 29% that said they don't see a business value to AI solutions, you can be the ones that help them go out there and prove that there is a value to that. Because again, I think if you think about it hard enough and you find some partners, that can help you out with that conversation, there's going to be a business case for every type of retailer out there.
Yep. Agreed. Yep.
All right. Well, let's shift over then to a couple areas where we think AI, and maybe have already seen it happen, that really impact retailers. Checkout, inventory management. We just kind of talked about the inventory management side there. And it's obviously two places that our VARs are spending a lot of time on. We know there's a lot of conversations happening around self-checkout. There's obviously a lot of stuff about inventory management, marrying that up with checkout and point of sale, and improving those workflows. So how does adding AI to existing workflows in retail right now, how does it help change the game for checkout and inventory management solutions?
These are very two different and broad workflows. So let's take one first. Let's talk about checkout. So I think with the innovations around computer vision and how accurate computer vision is becoming at identifying product through AI-based software, you're already seeing these changes. It's not like you're going to see it. It's already happening. It's happening in front of us. You may not even know it. There's companies out there already that have replaced barcode scanning with artificial intelligence-based applications. And you can experience it. You go to the airport, there's companies that are doing it in airport. There's some, convenience stores across the United States that have deployed some of these, these tools. So, but here's what the challenge is that there's certain settings where it makes sense. So automation, and, you can talk through what, Amazon Go or Amazon Fresh was doing, where they had a completely autonomous store that was running through artificial intelligence and other methodologies. You can also look at it and say that there is an element of this that's going to help with productivity, but you still need people from a self-checkout standpoint. So this spectrum of self-checkout, there is an element where it's completely autonomous, and then what I say is partially autonomous. And I think that's the important part, where the majority of retailers are going to need a partially autonomous experience from a self-checkout perspective, where the majority of the work that's being done is by your shopper. And it's got to be fast, nimble, and quick. There's two parts to this, and there may be even more, but my minimal thought through this is it's relatively simple. You have your hardware. You have the hardware that's going to enable the artificial intelligence to work. So how are you doing that? You're going to have very strong cameras that can pick up, and have a good line of sight, multiple cameras in some cases that can see what's going on. You have to have a zone where the customers bring this product to, so they can see the cameras can see the product and identify it at a relatively quick rate as well too. I think the one caveat to this, and this is one of the concerns, is this question I get all the time by retailers, is what happens to the barcode scanning industry if machine vision starts to take over? Does it become obsolete? My answer to them is that's not possible. Will it shrink to some degree in some cases? Yeah, there's no doubt. But I think in the grand scheme of things, and I'm sharing this in a pretty broad spectrum with the self-checkout, it's got to be looked at as AI plus or barcode plus. And what I mean by that is there's multiple technologies working hand in hand to make that experience seamless, the inventory accurate. And then, so when I say inventory accuracy, that's super critical to the next part, which is the inventory management of artificial intelligence. In order to be a unified commerce, and we talked about unified commerce on the last podcast. And if you guys haven't watched the last podcast from last year, I suggest you go back and do it. It's pretty cool. Anyway, so the unified commerce, which in modern day or in past has been known as omni-channel experience, the unified commerce experience, you have to have accurate inventory. So how does artificial intelligence play into this? And this starts in the entire supply chain. And I am talking from manufacturing all the way even to returns. And there's some information out there on what some large companies are doing as it relates to artificial intelligence and returns, where they're using this what I kind of just described from a machine vision perspective to identify damaged products, so they can reduce the amount of returns. We talked about this last time too. Returns has a huge impact on the retail segment. So inventory management through computer vision, through robotics too. You can go out and research this. There's robotics that are out there built on artificial intelligence that are doing inventory scanning at a much more rapid rate than what any human could do, because it can take a snapshot of an aisle and a relatively fast pace, and you have accurate inventory at all times. Considering that many retailers are filling these e-commerce orders from stores, you need accurate inventory. And these tools definitely help this become and remain accurate. So these two parts play hand in hand. If you have to have accurate inventory, the barcode or AI plus experience in your self-checkout, so the inventory is accurate, so it prevents and reduces theft and loss to the organization. That's another big problem right now in retail.
Oh, yeah.
And on the flip side is you also have to have inventory accuracy in your entire network, because the customer is the one that's going to experience frustration if it's not that way. So I can go on and on talking about how these things work, but those are very critical, if not the most critical components of retail, as well as where the focus is from an artificial intelligence standpoint.
The fact that it's not a barcode killer, I think, is an important one to highlight here, because obviously a lot of our customers are interested in that take.
That's why they were so hesitant about RFID for a while too.
For sure, yeah. But I think Tony's done a really good job of painting the reality is that it's not going away. No. It's going to be a mix. It's kind of like how RFID and barcoding exist today. Mm-hmm. Two are complementary. They both have significant advantages in what they do. And there's a reason for it. So I like the barcoding plus, or the barcode plus, kind of a technology, how AI's embracing it and kind of helping out, if you will, on augmenting or adding to the overall experience. I got one statistic. According to Capgemini, though, survey, 61% of retailers are using AI for fraud detection and prevention today. I thought that was a little bit high, but the point being, and Tony, I think you already tapped into it. There are use cases here where AI is clearly going to be very advantageous. If we train the models correctly and get them up to speed, they can help with this, because right now, I mean, fraud or just theft detection's got to be pretty big, right? Understanding that, because how many billions is it right now, Tony? Do you know off the top of your head? It's like 8 billion, or it's an extraordinary number of theft that is going out of retail right now. Right. So when you have that much money leaving, you're going to pour some dollars into it to try to detect it and prevent it, kind of a thing.
Yeah. Where in the past, Dean, what you're talking about is it's spot on. Where in the past, and I've spent time in loss prevention when I was in retail operations, we were a secondary thought. Loss prevention was a secondary thought, a secondary benefit, where now it's becoming top of mind because of what you're saying, not just from fraud identification, but just straight loss. So when we talk about this AI plus piece, where, you can scan a barcode, but then maybe the computer vision's like, well, hang on a second. That's not the barcode you just scanned. That product is different than what you're scanning, and they can, alert the customer. So, and it's not always intentional either. So the more you empower the shopper or the customer to do their own thing, there's going to be more errors. They're not receiving the same training. It's not like you're like, oh, you're a customer now? Well, guess what? We're going to put you through cashier training. That's not happening. It's assumed that they know how to do it. And I will tell you, I cannot tell you how many times I've heard stories from shoppers that said, well, if I try it 3 times, if it doesn't work, I just put it in my basket. It's their fault. Well,
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's loss. And there's no way accounting for that. So who's right? I mean, I would never do that. I would call and say, but that's happening. And you're absolutely
right. I bet you. Yeah, for sure.
I think that's an important point too, because to your point that loss is not necessarily always about a concerted ring of thieves, right.
Yeah.
Like I know we had Andy Zanger on a few weeks ago talking about Project Unlock or whatever that Lowe's is doing, where you can't even use your equipment
use the tool unless it's been, And
apparently because for them, that was an actual problem where there were,
people are just walking off with drills.
Organized crime that was actually going in and taking this stuff in order to resell it, and move it on a black market. But most people, it's just, well, I thought I was scanning this. I bought 4 of these. I thought I scanned it 4 times, but I really only scanned it 3, or only 3 of the scans took. So it's like, yeah, you stole one, but you didn't do it intentionally. And I know, like, to your point, a lot of retailers might be like, whatever, that happens every once in a while, but it's not. It's let's say it's happening 10 times a day. How much is that adding up, over the course of a week, over the course of a year, over the course of several years? And then on top of the other things that are going wrong, where merchandise is getting destroyed in some way, or maybe you've got merchandise that has a sell-by date in the back room, and because you don't know it's there, it's tucked in a corner, you're not getting it out in time to sell it on time, and you've got that's lost there as the products you can't sell because you didn't get them out on the floor in the right time, or you didn't get them from the warehouse to where they needed to be when the item was hot, and it was talked about on a popular talk show or something, and everybody could have. I remember this from back in my bookstore days. Oprah Winfrey.
Oh yeah.
If anyone showed up on the Oprah Winfrey show and said, here's my new book, if we didn't have it in stock in the first couple days after that person was on there, that's it. Your window was closed.
Yeah, right.
And most of the time, we didn't know. Like, there would be, every once in a while, there would be a hint. They would release a hint, like maybe like a few days ahead of time, where you'd have just enough time to scramble and get books in stock. But otherwise, basically it would happen, and you would know about it because you'd just be minding your business on a Tuesday afternoon or something, and suddenly like 10 people in a row walk in and like, do you have this book? I'm like, no, why does everyone want this? Oprah. Like, oh, okay. Now that explains it.
Got it.
And then suddenly you get the books 3 weeks later because you didn't have the inventory, or sometimes even the publisher, the printer, had not even bothered to print up enough copies because they didn't even know that it was going to happen.
Fail.
So it's stuff like that where I'm like, a little bit of extra intelligence could just eliminate so many of those speed bumps and make sure they're like, I mean, wouldn't it be awesome if you could think about that if you worked at any kind of a retail environment and some hot new item that was going to be features by an influencer on TikTok or something, gets mentioned, and you suddenly see mentions and likes blowing up, and people were starting to Google it. Wouldn't it be nice if there was some kind of artificial intelligence that was like, "Hey, we need to start shipping this ASAP. We know you've got 50 pallets of this sitting
the buyers
sitting in a warehouse. It needs to start moving right now.
Right.
This is their priority." I mean, that's the kind of stuff we're kind of talking about here, right?
Yeah, in theory, absolutely.
Yeah. There you go. All right. Well, then let's wrap up this conversation to talk a little bit about maybe some little bit of future prognosticating on your part here, Tony. You've been in this game long enough. You travel the world. You've seen maybe trends that are happening, across the pond somewhere, or just things that people are starting to talk about but aren't quite there yet. So, what are you watching out for right now on the AI and machine learning front when it comes to retail? What should we expect to start hearing and talking more about in the future over, let's say, the next 5 to 10 years or so?
And I think it's going to be even faster than that. I think 5 to 10 years is a good benchmark. I think 5 years is probably more realistic, where it's going to be an expectation. That's my perspective on it. But it's kind of similar to what we've been talking through. I think if I had to say anything to the retailers, it's really focusing on that experience that you're going to have around checkout. I think that piece right now is what you're really seeing a lot of organizations try to figure out. How do we improve the speed so it's faster for the customer to go through? How do we ensure that they're still satisfied from an overall satisfaction perspective? How do we reduce loss? How do we increase basket size? So how do we increase the experience and how much our shopper is spending, specifically with the macroeconomics the way they are today? Artificial intelligence in that realm, I think, is extremely critical, and I think retailers should be focusing on that. And they don't need the answer today per se. At least have some type of innovative solutions in place or experimenting with where it can help them become more successful. I think the second part, though, the other aspect of this is it goes right back into inventory management. You're starting to see this already, but I think down the road this will be a realistic where a computer, if you will, let's say a computer, a robot, whatever, has the ability to do inventory within minutes versus humans doing it. That right there is super critical. And just think of out of stocks, for an example. If you have a retailer that has an out of stock and it's, there's a computer vision technology, they're monitoring that, they can notify for, a batch pick or, bringing that product out from the back room or having it to reorder it without anyone ever touching anything. So that, I think, are the critical components right now. I think down the road, you're starting to see, like, is this complete automation really something that customers want? I don't know that yet. I think that's up for grabs. I think in terms of, as you move into the future, that's the 10-year piece where that may be a reality. But right now, I want to talk to someone. I want someone there Even if I'm having to do things on my own, I want that human interaction, because that right there makes me feel more comfortable. And that's what I think shoppers have indicated that, and retailers are trying to figure out where that middle ground is. I think the last part of this that is critical is the element of training. And we didn't mention this at all, but Dean, you kept talking about the associate. Augmented reality is a real thing too. That's in an artificial intelligence world. So if you think about, let's look at the same thing we're just talking about, inventory, and you can hold up a device that's looking at and scanning your shelf. It can tell you everything from, if something is gluten-free to, you're out of stock. Would you like to reorder? Or it can tell you where things go. This is out of place. It sees that, there's a Coke bottle or something sitting there that needs to go back into grocery, and it identifies it and says, bring it back. So those are the things that I think that will make retailers and associates more productive. There's also technology that's, being experimented with where, you have glasses on or some form of, augmented reality tool where you can see the product through the glass, but it's also training you on how to best pack that product. So you're more efficient when you're packaging product, or when you're building a pallet for that matter. So that's where retailers should be focusing right now. That's what I'm seeing. I think it's going to happen faster and faster and faster as this technology becomes more and more readily available. There's plenty of vendors out there right now that are exploring both from a software and hardware perspective. When they marry up, they become very dangerous.
I think another one that I would tap into is, because I know you're a proponent of the omni-channel type of or wait a minute, do you hate that phrase? I can't remember if you do.
I only don't like that because I had to explain when I was the director of omni-channel for Belk. I had to explain to people what I was doing over and over and over again. So I just finally said, if I have to do that so much, maybe so I have a negative experience with it. But unified commerce, really, if you think about it, it focuses on the shopper. The shopper is your primary target, and it's unified, unconditional of where that channel starts.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it continues to tap into the trend of personalization, right? I mean, I think that people want a good experience, and they don't mind a personalized experience, if they've opted into that type of a thing. And we all have our favorite clothing stores and stuff like that. And so, yeah, if I got a message that was trying to drive me, I'm at home from a retailer that's trying to, show me some alternatives or some new products that based on my shopping history that I might like, to trying to drive me back into the store to try it on or something like that. That's a good experience, I happen to be looking for a new button-down short sleeve shirt. So what do they got? Oh, okay. Yeah, maybe I will go in and try that. So I think that's, some of those back of house ways that you think about. That's how AI, another area that I think AI is going to be pretty powerful. What about these chatbots or virtual assistants? Have you seen that yet, Tony, out, because AI obviously has gotten a lot of run over the last 3-4 months just because of the LLMs of ChatGPT and the whatnot. So now it's like everybody understands, oh my gosh, I can interface with this thing in a very human way. Are you starting to see some of that trending out there? Are people at least asking about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So that, I think on the e-commerce side, it's very important from a service perspective. I mentioned earlier, where, you make a phone, you can call and you have to go through the automated prompts. That's all AI based. And I think similarly with, chatbots, it does a very similar thing. And I will tell you early on when this whole, chat experience started where you could, do a chat versus sending an email or calling, it was really like, just give me a representative. Just give me a representative. I don't want to answer.
Keep pressing zero. Yeah. Keep pressing zero. Yeah.
But now it's become it's like even the voice is realistic. Even the responses that you get on your chat are more realistic. So that experience is critical. That's going to continue to materialize and become better and better, year over year. And that, I don't think that's been around for a long time. It's just getting better and better. So absolutely, there's a huge play in that. I think that also helps with, routing calls to the right folks. It helps in terms of answering questions before they get to a person to keep them more productive. That is absolutely something that's critical. It's one of those things that has been there and it's going to continue to improve.
I have nothing to add here because I think you guys both covered very well some of the future possibilities here and what we should be talking about. So I got nothing to add to this.
You got nothing. All right.
I got nothing. I'm stupefied. It doesn't happen to me too often, but I got nothing to add here. All right. Hey, before we wrap up with our value to the VAR here, I want to, as always, thank our our TEConnect sponsors.
Yes.
Big thanks to Honeywell, who's been an ongoing sponsor of our TEConnect program. We appreciate their support and for lending us Tony. Apparently, it's becoming a yearly thing now. We're just going to bring Tony back to talk about what's happening in the world of retail. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. I mean, if you need someone to come talk about retail, you might as well have Tony do it.
Go right to the guy. Yeah.
Thanks to all of our other sponsors as well. Hey, if you like our show, if you're watching us on YouTube right now, hit the like button for the episode. That's
cool.
something
easy.
super
it's
simple.
right there. Yeah.
Just go down below. You know, you do it all the time on Facebook for every random post of someone's dog or kids that you see. You can do it for a video too. Leave us a comment. I know that takes a couple extra seconds, but just tell us, what did you think about this episode? Did you have any questions we should follow up on later?
Yep.
Maybe stuff you'd like for us to talk about with Tony in the future. Follow and subscribe to our YouTube channel, obviously. If you're listening to this on any traditional audio-only podcast, especially if you're on Apple Podcasts or I believe Spotify, where you can leave ratings and reviews, please take a moment to do that. You'd be surprised how much that helps any podcast to grow its subscriber base and just get the word out to other folks. And for that matter, if you like the show and you think other folks should be listening to it, just get the word out there. Go share it, share an episode, just, offer it up to somebody else.
See us on LinkedIn, share it there too. Yeah.
There you go. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Which reminds me, follow BlueStar on LinkedIn, because every week I'm always posting recaps of the podcast. So if you miss an episode, you can get a full recap there. Plus you can keep up with all the other cool stuff we're doing, events that we go to, webinars that we're putting on. It's a good time to be following us on LinkedIn right now. And as always, if you want to get in touch with me and Dean directly, you can always find us on Twitter /X/whatever
it is
we're calling it this week, that platform that may not survive the night. I don't know. You can find us there at TEConnect Pod. You can also email us TEConnect@BlueStarInc.com. All right, let's wrap things up, first of all, with our value to the VAR.
Yep.
So kind of our way of a takeaway for our VARs.
Yeah.
Maybe something you can do right now related to this conversation that we've just had. So, so for VARs that are interested in developing partnerships as they go to market with AI solutions, they're like, hey, I know I want to do this. I see the value in it. Not sure quite where to start, though. Where do you recommend that they go first? How should they vet potential partners? Maybe tell us a little bit about Honeywell's role in this, too, and how you can help them out.
Yeah, of course. So I think there's three components of this in my perspective that I would suggest for VARs to look at. You need strong hardware. So in order for artificial intelligence to work, you need a strong hardware partner, meaning that you've got to have someone that is equipped to enable that hardware from an AI perspective. So be it if it's a self-checkout infrastructure or a camera system, you've got to have good partnerships as it relates to that. Then you got to empower that hardware with the right software. So there's so many different, from a hardware perspective and software, there's a ton of variety out there that you can go out and look for and explore and build partnerships to help build. And this last part that I'm talking about is this, it has to be packaged correctly. So you got to think through when you're dealing with, doesn't matter if it's a small business or big business, most folks don't know. They think of artificial intelligence as one thing. It's not. It's many components working together, and that package has to be fully vetted out. So when you present to whomever the end user is, it really makes sense to them and helping driving their business forward. So Honeywell, obviously, we continue to innovate all the time, and we're constantly looking not just for partners in working with folks within the industry, but even internally too. We have an innovative take on what the future looks like, and we're constantly looking for methods that are going to help improve our customers, so they can improve their customer experience. So that's a continuation that'll always go on. So hardware first, making sure that they have strong hardware, good solid, manufacturing expectations, a software that's viable, reliable, easy to use, is easy to update when needed, and that can build ultimately a package that they can deliver to the end user.
So partnerships, right? It comes back to partnerships, leveraging your vendor partners like Honeywell. And I think a word I'll throw in here is vetting, vetted partners. So because that's so important to resellers who are trying to get into this game. And let's face it, AI right now is the freaking Wild West. Everybody's popping up. You walk around NRF or anything like that, they're a dime a dozen, it seems like. So who are the right ones? Lean into your vendor partners, your distribution partner like us. With our TEConnect program, we can help you get the vetted partners, the ones that the industry feels like, oh, these are good guys. These are the guys and gals that understand what they're doing and have a place within our ecosystem. pretty critical. Yeah.
I was going to say the same thing you did, which is come to us. I mean,
Right.
If you're struggling to figure out where to find those partnerships, reach out to us at BlueStar, your account manager, our Honeywell team, anybody here. We're happy to help, pair you up and partner you up with the right folks. We're happy to
set you on a path.
Yeah, exactly. We're happy to grab someone like a Tony and bring them in and say, hey, Tony will help you out with a little bit of this conversation. Find someone else. It's at an AI software side of things. Find somebody on the inventory management side of things. Whatever it is, we're happy to put those packages of partners together for you so that you can go and have the backing of something that makes you look good when you go out the other side. Again, as always, we won't take the credit. We're not going to say hey, tell them BlueStar send you. They don't know who we are. We're just going to send you out there with all these amazing people behind you, and you can look like the absolute IT pro that delivered the next generation solution.
Win-win for everybody. There you go. Yeah.
All right, let's wrap up as always with our favorite segment, What's TEConnecting with You?
Yes.
This is where we get to talk about something in the world of science, innovation, technology, business, or just whatever random news story we felt like chatting about today. Tony, I'll let you start. What's TEConnecting with you today?
So I'm going to stay on this topic, and I know this is probably the easy way out, but if I'm being completely honest, I have spent so much time at exploring this. I cannot stop thinking about what really the future holds when it comes to artificial intelligence, not just from a retail perspective, but what can it replace? So I'll give you an example. My wife is a chef, and she has leveraged some automation tools in her world, if you will, to help in terms of building what her recipes look like, testing a recipe out even before it's made in terms of viability. It's crazy. So you think about artificial intelligence and what its capabilities are, it expands well beyond and what we talked about from a business perspective. You think your refrigeration, your refrigerators, even your garage door openers, MyQ. I mean, there's so much stuff that's out there that's built on artificial intelligence and collecting data to help you have a better experience. And so the one area that I think is pretty neat is the stuff that my wife does in terms of the science, not just the food science, but the science behind coming up with a solid, viable recipe that can become a production product. So I love that stuff, and I think it's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. So my cooking skills are not nearly to the place where I could input the right information to get, to even ask the question: is this going to taste good? I wonder. You should put in, does peanut butter and jelly go together, and see what it says.
It's gonna just it's just gonna answer duh. Yes. Do you have a child around? Ask them. Yes, it goes together just fine. So,
man,
that's good stuff though. And you're right, because I'm still kind of I know AI, obviously I know all those amazing applications for AI, but I've yet to have that one moment for me personally that makes me go, okay, this is cool. This is exactly I've used ChatGPT a few times, obviously, and it's one of those things I went from being very skeptical about to all right, I see some use in this, but I've yet to ever find a point where I'm like, all right, this just saved my day in some way. Usually it's more of all right, that was helpful, but I need to do some retooling on that. I'm waiting for that one piece of AI innovation, kind of like what you're talking about with your wife there, that makes me go, this is sweet. And I'm so glad that this now exists in my universe. I'm hoping that's coming soon. I'm sure it will at some point. I just haven't personally encountered it yet. But I'm excited to know that stuff like that's happening, that people are having those kind of aha moments where their entire, career or life or whatever gets improved by being able to do this. So.
Yes.
And maybe I have in some way and just don't really realize it yet. But I think, now that we're really thinking about it as much, I'm waiting for that one thing that's going to just make me go, yes. This is awesome. So we'll see. If it does, it'll be on the show, I promise.
What's that, Tony?
What's really cool about this, John, is that sometimes this technology is happening and we just accept it and don't even realize
that's
it.
Very true. That is very true.
We're adapting to this, and that's what's really cool. And it's not, there's stuff, your iPhone's taking a picture of you every 5 seconds so it recognizes your face. Do you know that it's happening? But no, it makes it a lot easier when you do facial recognition. So those are the things that I think that's cool, and you don't even realize it because you're adapting to what's actually happening, and it's seamless.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Definitely. All right, Dean, what's TEConnecting with you?
So do you like your wearable?
I do.
Okay. Well, you think about upgrading your wearable?
I just got a new one last Christmas, so not anytime soon.
So you're pretty good.
Not.
Well, here's a little bit of a mashup of a wearable and what we'll call analyzing data. Okay. So engineers demonstrate wearable sensor with record-setting solar power efficiency. This prototype analyzes real-time health statuses via sweat. and it does not require carrying a battery, which is that's the mashup here. So the energy is coming from flexible Provopsych solars. I'm just going to use the acronym FPSCs as they're called. So this is this really flexible silicon solar type of thing that can generate enough power to power this little computer, this little chip that's on you, and can monitor you via the sweat that you have, which you're producing all the time, whether you realize it or not. And it can communicate with something. So it's that robust. So it may become a day very soon where instead of just our watches, we're wearing this little PFC thing with FPSC thing that's monitoring you like all the time. And when it's around. So maybe we won't need this bulky watch that we're all wearing to get your vitals and stuff like that on it. So anyway, Wearable is getting smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah, I'm excited about some of that too, because I've noticed like since I upgraded my watch, like I've got a few more new bugs and features that I didn't have before, of like little stuff that it's tracking that it wasn't before. Like, it can do like the oxygen level stuff or whatever. I like a lot of that stuff, but you're right. There's still a little bit. I mean, I know like, cause I always notice like Apple will like, cause this one has like the defibrillator thing or whatever, where it tracks your heartbeat or whatever.
EKG,
Yeah, and can identify like if you've got any kind of potential
arrhythmias
or abnormalities. But it's very very cautious to warn you, like this cannot sense a heart attack.
Right.
I want to have that tech that will do that. Like, I want that thing that I can wear that can tell me like, hey, you might be having a cardiac event. You should probably get to the doctor or to the hospital right now. Or hey, you might be having a stroke or something. Or it looks like you're in some kind of distress. Like I don't see any reason why we are that far off from that technology. Where given where we already are, it seems like we shouldn't be too much further off. And I think something like being able to just measure sweat, could be
It's going to be that simple. Don't have to plug it in. It's just it's such revolutionary what the trickle power that this thing creates. There you go.
I like it.
Done deal.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay. Coming to a store near you very soon. So let's TEConnecting with you.
All right. So I am behind the scenes curtain here. I totally forgot to pull my TEConnect and research ahead of time.
But you found one.
But thankfully, I always have a running list of stuff that I like, articles that I see. And I'm like, that's probably going to be a good one. So I pulled one of those up here, and it's a pretty easy one to talk about. This is from Berkeley News. The headline of the article is, "When ET calls, can we be sure we're not being spoofed?" Like that caught my interest. I'm like, all right, I gotta check this out.
What, so like there's crank callers out in space? Is that what you mean?
It could be extraterrestrial crank yankers or something. Like, hey, is your planet running? You better catch it. Something like that. I don't know. So basically, they're talking about how SETI, the Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, which a lot of folks think is like, this dumb program that doesn't need to exist, but still exists. Mm-hmm. They struggle with funding sometimes, but they're still out there. Yeah. They're still working hard at identifying if extraterrestrial life might exist.
I think they're getting new funding after what just happened on Capitol Hill here recently.
That's a good point. Yeah. They point out and say, see? This guy says there's UFOs. Yeah. So scientists have devised a new technique for finding and vetting possible radio signals from other civilizations in our galaxy. But the important part of that is helping be able to differentiate that from other random signals that maybe just might be bouncing back,
happening naturally.
Stuff that because we've got we have so many signals that are constantly beaming off planet at all times that could easily like hit something, bounce back, or could get warped in some way and kind of deflected back to Earth.
Or it's kind of like playing the record player backwards,
Paul is dead.
Forward, it's whatever. Dancing Days by Led Zeppelin. Backwards, it's telling you to die.
Yeah, exactly. So basically,
you don't want to get those crossed up signals.
There's been apparently some like false hopes that occasionally occur,
and
they want to make sure that they're building out some new infrastructure and new vetting techniques around research that can help them to identify more easily and quickly. I bet you they're probably using some artificial intelligence for this, to identify when something is a man-made signal that probably came from Earth and not something that's extraterrestrial. It very much reminds me of one of my absolute favorite films, Contact.
Yes.
With Jodie Foster.
Yes.
Like I love that movie just because I love that concept.
What was the other guy? What was the guy in that one?
Matthew McConaughey was in it.
Oh, okay, good.
So I just love that concept of the listening for stuff, and of course no one wants to believe her at first, and then this signal beamed in that was like actually from like the 1930s, and it's like Hitler opening up the Olympics or something, and people are freaking out like, oh my god, they must think that's their kind of guy and they're coming here to invade. And like, no, because that was the first television broadcast, the first signal that had enough power to go into space and give it. So stuff like that fascinates me.
That is.
So I know that we probably won't hear from the extraterrestrials in my lifetime if they're out there, but I love that they're still working on this. I love that it's out there, even though I think wasn't it like the Arecibo, the big satellite dish that like got shut down? Like
the one that was like
falling
in the earth?
apart. Yeah, it was like falling apart, and just finally they shut it down because they couldn't get the funding to keep it together. So it's nice to know they still are hard at work on this, and out there listening to the stars.
We need some actual evidence, some quantifiable stuff there.
That's right.
That they won't hide from us. But anyway,
there you go. All right, that does it for us. It's time to unplug. That's what's TEConnecting with us. Tony Boncore from Honeywell, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate having you back on the show. We will most likely drag you back on again at some point in the future because why not? We should.
Why not?
You know your stuff. Until next time, go out there, listen for some extraterrestrials. Find out what AI can do for you in the kitchen,
a recipe,
anywhere else.
Yes.
And I don't know, find something to track your sweat. As always, stay connected. This episode of the TEConnect podcast was brought to you by Honeywell. I want to empower retail associates with an all-purpose universal power tool in a consumer form factor with enterprise support.
Cool, that sounds pretty good.
I mean, we talked all about you need to empower those employees.
Absolutely.
Give them the tools they need.
You got one tool?
Yeah, that's exactly what Honeywell's CT30 XP delivers.
Nice.
The CT30 XP is a durable, all-purpose device offering ultra-reliable data access and communications for frontline mobile workers. Combining the elegant design and usability of a high-end mobile phone with powerful Honeywell software like operational intelligence, smart talk, and smart pay, this device is an ideal platform for building effective solutions for retail, healthcare, and delivery.
Did you say talk and pay?
Talk and pay.
You did. Yes.
There you go.
Nice.
Two things we like to do around here. Talk and pay for stuff, especially with Dean's credit card. The CT30 XP is built on Honeywell's Mobility Edge platform for optimized performance, stability, and security, offers Wi-Fi 6 for maximum connectivity with less power usage, and incorporates a flex range scan engine for pinpoint barcode scanning accuracy and speed. To learn more about these sleek, lightweight mobile computers, check out the link in the show notes or contact your BlueStar account manager. The TEConnect podcast is also brought to you by ELO. ELO is bringing decades of touchscreen experience to the palm of your hand.
Nice.
With the M50 handheld mobile computer, an enterprise-grade Android device built for efficiency and connectivity. All right, let's talk some specs here.
All right.
We like our specs.
We like specs.
Yep. Even when we don't understand what half of them probably mean. 5.5-inch HD touch display.
Nice. Got that one.
Integrated 2D barcode scanner.
Yep.
Android 10 OS. And a rugged design for commercial use. All right.
And it's sleek and sexy. Have you seen this thing?
Yeah.
Oh, man, this thing's
pretty
nice.
cool looking. The M50 is ready to integrate via ELO View or the MDM of your choice seamlessly. Now, what else might you want? Might you want out of a device like this?
Let's see.
Long battery life.
Oh, yep. Gotta have that.
Got that. Quick charge.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely. Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, 4G communications.
Gotta communicate.
Yeah.
Got it all.
Plenty of accessories.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
We like modularity and accessories.
There you go. You got it all with the M50. The M50 is a bold choice for warehousing, retail, healthcare, and delivery enterprises. Check out the link in the show notes or contact BlueStar's ELO team to learn more. The TEConnect podcast is also brought to you by Zebra. All right, and here's a stat for you. 85% of retail associates say they could provide a better customer experience if they had enterprise-grade mobile computers with built-in scanners to use on the job.
Nice.
85%.
Well, I don't know what the 15 other percent are thinking, but 85% are dead on.
Yeah, 15% are going out of business soon,
That's
probably.
Right.
And this also means that you probably should be out there selling these mobile computers, right? With these built-in scanners.
100%.
That's just one of the findings in Zebra's new ebook, Future-Proofing Retailers, The Power of Purpose-Built Devices.
Nice.
This ebook explores the shift to digital technology for retailers that mirrors customer experience and expectations for purchasing, conducting research, and comparing prices. To read this ebook and learn how to position your solutions for the modern retailer, check out the link in the show notes.